Ever heard this quote from Einstein that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results? This is not going to be you in 2022. I see sometimes people, just moving on from one year to the other without reflecting about what they've learned through the year. And this is such an important process. It's really important to go and look at the lessons you've got from this year, the positive one, as well as the painful one, as well as the question mark one where you're like, I don't know what was a learning for me in this process, and to really embrace that so that you can go into the next year with more, eyes wide open, and you can take different decisions to improve your life. I'm going to help you do that. I'm going to share with you today 5 questions that I'm using myself as part of my year review that I've always found very impactful when you spend some time answering them and really giving it a thought. So the first question I want to ask you is that what is the one thing you've learned about yourself in 2021? What is the one thing that you discovered about yourself? I'm asking you that because no growth can happen if you're not noticing your own progress, or you are not noticing where you miss an opportunity to grow. And when you think about one thing that you've learned about yourself, you will be able to identify that. So maybe you've noticed a new strength that you have that maybe you're not using as much as you could be an idea for next year. Maybe it's a skill that you've been able to build this year that was really helpful that you did not have last year. Or maybe you just got aware that maybe you're repeating a pattern that is not supporting you, or maybe some of your beliefs about what you think about life got challenged and you realize that that there is a different way to think about that. Think about everything that you say as this thing because I've learned it, I'm a better person right now, or better person, or I know how to become a better person if I really embrace that learning. Have a think about that. The second question I want to ask you, it's going to be a strong one. It's going to be, what did you hate about 2021? I usually hate using the word hate because it's very, very intense emotionally. But at some points, you also need to get breakthroughs. And some of the greatest breakthroughs that I've experienced or that I've seen over coaching client experience is when you are honing your negative emotion, when there is like strong negative emotions like this, and you are expressing them out there, out loud, and just owning them. So think about what are the areas or situations or people where you felt the most resistance this year, where you really felt like you had to push through, or there was some tension, or it was not pleasant, or maybe it was the opposite, you were disengaging, you were avoiding the task. Maybe you just think, oh, there's been so much frustration or so much stress piling up in that specific area of my life. Have a think about this because you want to be re-engaging. You want to be going and leaning in for next year and leave this thing that you hate behind, or at least have a better idea of how you can approach them differently. So have a think of identify them and obviously start thinking about how could be different approaches for next year if you already have some ideas there. My third question for you is, what do you regret not having done or wish you did differently this year? Regret is always something to look at because it gives you an indication. When you regret something, it's because your mind knows that you did not perform the way you expected yourself to perform. Or maybe that there was a disalignment between the way you showed up, the way you behave, versus who you know is the best version of you. And if you can analyze these regrets or this thing that you wish you did differently, it's going to give you a real indication about what you can change as well. So what was it for you? What behaviors did not feel like your best self? What did you miss doing maybe? And think about how you can remind yourself once you identify behind what is it. Maybe you've broken the value that you think you are living by. Maybe you were not aligned with who you believe you are really. How can you remind yourself about this? How can you remind yourself about your values, about who you are in a different way next year to make sure you stay aligned and you don't have any regrets happening in 2022? It's a tough question, it's a deep question, so give it some thought and some time to digest. My fourth question for you is, it's gonna be a funny one, is what are the questions you have not asked yourself enough? Because I'm asking you questions right now, but we also usually ask ourselves questions, or we don't ask ourselves enough questions that can guide us in the right direction. So if you look back at 2021, Where do you realize that you could have made your own life easier, much faster? Where do you think maybe you took good decisions that were really helpful for you, but maybe not fast enough? Where did you see moments where you were stuck, and how did you manage to unstuck yourself, or re-improve your life? When this type of phases happen, is usually because your focus changed. Your focus that was focused on the problem help you find another solution. And if you can understand what focus you change, you might be able to articulate from there some questions that were important for you. And this question, they might also empower you and move you into action faster next year. So that is really something to have a think about. Maybe the question you have not asked yourself could be, I don't know, for me it was like, okay, what am I really, how am I really showing up right now? Or maybe it could have been, okay, what if I was not focusing on getting client, but just enjoying myself as a coach? You see, it can be questions like this that can really help you switch your mindset a little bit. And my last question for you for today is, what is one area where you feel there is still growth possible for you? I don't want you to go in 2022 thinking, yes, I have it all figured out. I also want to think about you as an individual. What else can you improve? Where do you feel you've been the most challenged this year, where maybe you realize you're missing a skill, or you need new tactics to handle situations? What makes you feel uncomfortable? Maybe even doubt yourself, because that's a signal there is growth possible for you there. Or maybe where do you feel you've already grown a lot in 2022 and you're like, yes, I've really nailed that, but you're like, let me spend a bit more time on that still next year to really solidify that and to take the most out of it. So have a think about where you can still grow, because we all can still grow. So this was 5 questions to help you take the key lessons from 2022 and just move forward, 2021, and move forward in 2022, without forgetting all these important bits of information that you actually gathered this year. So have a good think about that. Let me know how it goes for you in the comments, and I see you next week for a last set of questions to help you start mapping out your 2022.